Hey YouTube, this is video 2 on this lower unit. I wanted to kind of give you an update of where I was. This is basically 24 hours after I've got this rubber put into this aluminum housing, and we talked about that a little bit on the first video. Now, one thing that's important, this little clamp right here, you're going to want it to be tight on that wire and held in place while that's setting up, and I wouldn't leave it out there while you're doing that. So and I've got a house full of kids and family, but anyway, so there's the top solenoid sitting in there, and he's sitting on top of the lower solenoid. And one thing I do want to try and point out, I don't know if I'll be able to, but this is that pin part of the shifting, the electric shift on here. And when you place these and stack them on top of each other, and this is the neutral solenoid and the reverse solenoid is below it. Let me get a light around here so you can see a little better. Alright, try and get down in the hole a little bit. But what I want to point out is, if you can see down there, and I don't know if I can position the light in my camera enough to see those pins. Probably I may not, but let me see if I can get it around there. I'd like for you to be able to see that. You can visually confirm that that pin in the tube with the pin through it is setting in that. Boy, it's hard to get light right there, isn't it? Well, you can almost see it, just a hint of it. It's over there in the dark. But when you reset these, you need to make sure that that pin is going through that hole in that upper tab. So, now then, anything that I'm saying on here, I've got to do one of those, you don't try this, and I'm not responsible for anything you try or whatever. So everything you do is at your own risk, of course. But on this piece here, if you looked close in my last video, this has a cone shape to it. And when it goes in the hole, so it actually, the rubber has a cone shape to it. So after sleeping on this and knowing that that little C clip, which is pushed in there, it's already in there right now. Let's see if I can get that. You're not going to be able to see that clip. You might be able to see the edge of it there. This thing isn't focusing very good. I apologize for that. But that's what holds that in there. It's not a very good design. So I've kind of come up with another plan, and that light right there probably isn't helping. But I want to show you this. Now, this is an old stainless steel knife, very thin, and I put it in my little vise over there, and I did some measuring on that cap, and I'll turn it around this direction, and basically this is going to slide over. I'm going to cut this out of this blade, and it's going to slide over that wire, bolt down, and have somewhat of a spring effect to hold that wire down in that hole and keep pressure on it. I think that may help this thing seal for an extended period of time. If you're careful and you're a fabricator like I am, you can take your time and determine how wide you want this to be. You can put a bend roll in that and then bring these two sides back up 90 so they're fairly flat. I don't know if you can see down that or not, but there's a view. Get a view straight down on that dude, and that's not perfect, of course, but not too bad for the garage. So I'm going to cut that out, and then I will slide it down the wire. Now I have to make a big enough hole, and you can see the outline of what I'm going to what my finished piece will be there. And I'm going to be a little bit tighter on this because it is really tight back here behind the rubber, and so it's just going to be a sliver that's going to go behind there, but I still want some spring steel back there and hold pressure on that. But it is critical that this wire, this rubber on this wire, doesn't move. And so that's why I wanted to get back to this little clamp. Be sure that's tight, and put you a little kind of temporary nut on the bolt that holds this cap down. That way that thing will stay put, and then I'm going to have to be real careful when I slide that spring cap down on there, and it'll bolt in over here. So again, just when you set these solenoids, make sure there's a plastic washer that goes in between them. There is a little metal spring that sits right on the very top of the top solenoid, and it sits up in that housing, and these do have some movement to them. So it'll allows a little movement there anyway, and that's how they designed it, I guess. So, but that's where I'm at with this. I did want to show you another thing on this oil is this stuff is extremely expensive, and it doesn't conduct electricity the way I understand it. So I've gone through some quarts of this, and I don't want to go through any more. What I had put in there and emptied back out, now this sat outside for a little while and got a little bit of debris in it, but I wanted to show you that this oil was all milky. And when we were cooking dinner last night, this is an old just a stainless steel mixing bowl. I put this pan over the vent from the oven, which is in the middle of one of the burners on top of the stove. And I sit there and watched this thing and rocked it back and forth, and the oven was on 400. Now this was sitting on the stove top, not in the oven. And basically it started kind of just barely walking like oil does when it gets hot. And eventually that all that moisture that was in there and making it milky came out of it, and it cleared back up. So I'm going to filter this, and I'll put it back into one of my, I've got an empty quart here. A gallon of this is about $65. So you don't want to throw this out if you can save it. And so that's what I'm going to try and do, is just filter this and put it back in. I'll use a coffee filter and strain that through there and then put it back in there, and I'll have it as some backup. But I think that's where I'm at for now. I'm getting ready to cut this piece out of this blade, and I'll get that all put together. and hopefully it'll push down on the top of this rubber piece and apply some pressure, because when this fails, if you move that in the slightest little bit, that's how it fails, and it'll either blow air bubbles, or you can hear it sucking air when you put some vacuum on it. So that's the plan, and we'll check back in with you later today on video 3 and see what this looks like when it's all buttoned up. Alright, see you later.